I'm Gemma, and this is a chat with Gemma. So in my previous video, I sort of talked about, how it's a pity that people get divorced when they've lived together for more than 20 years. You think they've got along that long. How come they can't just keep going? But the thought came to me that sometimes people can have depression. I remember watching a TV show like, I don't know, was it Dr. Oz or one of those? And there was a woman who had married, she's a bit like Elizabeth Taylor, she'd married, I don't know how many times. Let's say she'd married 5 times. It was a lot of times. And she kept getting depression and then she would get divorced. And so, she blamed the poor guy each time for her depression. So, he's supposed to be able to make me happy and, the romance and the love and all that sort of thing that girls can get into their heads that men can do. And she started to cry and she said that, I think it was the second last husband, he was Mr. Right, her Mr. Right. And she divorced him because she got depression. So sometimes people can be in relationship and they, one or the other, or both, can get depression. And there are different types of depression because a relative of mine has a very unusual sort of depression as far as I'm concerned. Because for her, she doesn't feel sad or anything like that, but she just has no energy, can't get going, I suppose feels lacking in confidence, that sort of thing. And whereas for me, depression is feeling, just really wretched, very sad and more than just sad, And so I can imagine a scenario where two people in a marriage, particularly, once if they've had children have left home and, when you've got children in the house and noise and everything, it's very distracting. It's also very cheerful. There's lots of life in the place. And, when things are a little bit quieter and you can hear the clock ticking on the wall, that sort of thing, perhaps, any kind of slight depression you might have can start to get a grip. But also, I can remember a scenario where I was working in a school and there were 2 boys that had the same thing. Now, I can't remember exactly what the diagnosis was. Let's say they both had, Asperger's syndrome, which I know that now they prefer to just call it autism. But I think oftentimes people with Asperger's do have other issues as well. Anyway, these 2 boys, so they both had disabilities of some kind. And I can remember thinking, when they meet together, that would be really great because surely they would become the best of friends because they would know each other's problem and be like, somebody who knows how I feel and I can talk about how I feel and they'll understand it and all of that and we think the same way and all of that. Anyway, one day it just happened that for whatever reason one was waiting for their parent in the waiting room and the other one came in. And it was really odd because exactly the opposite to what I expected happened. It was like sparks were almost going off. It was just like they saw each other and just hated each other and it was like bzz, 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 electrical, firing. It was amazing. It was like 2 demons, hating each other and fighting each other and rah! And I'll never forget that. It was the complete opposite to how I thought it would be. So I can imagine how two people in a marriage could have depression in different ways and absolutely not understand each other and absolutely not sympathise with each other. And you would think, being each other's supposed soulmates, that you'd be of great comfort to each other and understanding, let's go through this together. But at the same time, it can be because when you are suffering, you can obviously can be very on edge, very easily irritated. So the other person's only got to, put the milk slightly to the left of where you'd like it to be, and vice versa. And so I think that the other thing about things that are wrong with us, or, gone a bit bent or something, we tend to pretend that they're not happening. So, sometimes you kind of sprain your ankle really badly and you think, no, I didn't sprain my ankle really badly just then, because you can picture yourself, taking days and days to get over this, and you've got this whole life to live, you've got to go to work, and you've got to do all of this work, and, no, can't be doing that right now. And your foot saying, I'm really sore, and your brain saying, nope, no, you're not. Nope, didn't sprain you. Until you sort of finally, head in the hands, and you've got to face up to, you've just got to get over this over the next however many days it's going to take to get better. And, sometimes when we are extremely tired, even to the point of burnout, which I've reached more than once in my life, you can just have this face that's going down like that because you're just so tired you can hardly. Hello, how are you? To make a smile at somebody is just impossible. And I can recognise that look in other people's faces too, because I just know what that feels like myself. But we tend to try to cover it up, don't we? So we try to look sane, we try to look normal, don't we? We're always trying to be like everybody else. And so we cover it up instead of just saying, I am so burnt out and wretchedly tired. Just excuse me at the moment if I don't smile very much. It's going to take me a while to, pick myself back up again. But then on the other hand, there are people that perhaps, like we are trying to be more open these days, aren't we? And a lot of people have been very brave and come out about their depressions and anxieties and things like that. But there are people that will use it against us. There are people that will use it as a weapon against you. So, but I think we've got to be pretty, sharp with people like that. And so, no, that's not acceptable. For example, a relative of mine, her husband suddenly announced that the marriage was over. This was complete news to her. And he had found a new girl. And so she was going through a lot of, suffering over this, emotional suffering. And it was a complete surprise, and she really couldn't quickly get over it. And one sort of Saturday morning, it wasn't a work day, so she was sort of lying in bed and just slowly waking up. And she was crying and crying and crying, and then she just thought she couldn't go on like this day after day after day, feeling so dreadful that she would kill herself. But their one child was in the house, so she thought she would have to kill her child. And then she realised, well, she couldn't kill her child, so she would just have to keep going. And she mentioned this to her ex, and he must have told his new girlfriend about it. and they both kind of used it to make out that she was a bit cuckoo. So, yeah, you do have to be careful who you tell things to, but at the same time, why is it that people think that that is something to be ashamed of? If you've got burnt out, you haven't done something wrong. If you've got depressed or if you've got anxious or panic disorder, that's really something rotten that's happened to you. And, there should be absolutely no, and society should not have any judgment. There should be absolutely no shame about that whatsoever. And I think we're slowly learning to look at these things differently. You have a lot of celebrities now, and even members of, say, a public life in politics, people high up in things like the police force and so forth have gone on a TV program and talked about their experiences and so on. Some sports people. So that's very brave of them to be so open, but I think it's also very helpful to a lot of people so that we remove that ridiculous thing of people feeling like they have to hide this. They have to kind of somehow put this expression on their face that this dreadful thing's not happening when they're just feeling absolutely rotten inside. I mean, you can feel so bad with depression that you literally count minutes. A quarter of an hour's gone by. Phew, I've gotten through a quarter of an hour. So why add something else on top of that? And also, if you are in a relationship, it's appropriate to tell the other person what you're going through. Sometimes spouses have found, a packet of antidepressants, and that's the first news they've had that their partner has depression. I think that's very sad that people don't have enough trust in each other and obviously feel ashamed and embarrassed about this, instead of just feeling like it's just rotten luck. It's just rotten luck. And completely feeling able to talk to the other one and confide in them and hopefully the other one's not going to be driven away by that, because yes, that is a factor as well, isn't it, with depression, is people fear that if they confess it, oh no, everybody's going to now run from me because nobody wants to be with the misery guts. And I think that is true. That most people, we avoid suffering, don't we? So if somebody has depression, they tell us they have depression, we do run for the hills, and we do want to get away from that person because we don't want anything to bring us down. But at the same time, there are the Mother Teresas and those people in the world. There might be a small percentage of the population, but they are around, and so we need to find those people and lean on them for a little while, and let others in return lean on us occasionally as well. And so I would hope that married couples would, start communicating to each other without embarrassment, without shame, and work it out together. How are we going to make this go away? How are we going to get the one with depression happier? Or if both are depressed, how are we both going to get happier without dragging each other down? So you don't want to drag each other down. You want to start finding solutions together, and two heads are always better than one. Work out what sort of counselling you'd like to do, separate together. Do you need to give each other comfort, or I don't need your comfort because I'm that's not the way I'm experiencing the depression. Whereas the other partner might need lots of comforting because they're feeling depressed and almost becoming childlike with that, where they're just like sensitive to everything like a child would be, and they just need that time of comfort when they're at home. Anyway, if that is the case with you, I truly sympathise and wish you the best, and at least throw off any shame or embarrassment. All right, I'll leave it there, and bye for now.